It's going to be a blockbuster in Tuscaloosa. You got Georgia going to Alabama. College game day. This is going to be, I believe, the game of the year to this point in the somewhat young college football season. It's week 5, but what's going to determine the outcome of this game? As we sit here on Sunday morning, depending on how you divvy up your week, you're either finishing week 4 or jumping into week 5. We're going to take an early look at Georgia-Bama right now and give you just our stream of consciousness as we jump into week 5 of the college football season. So make sure you're subscribed. Georgia fans, Bama fans alike, y'all have both been great to this channel by subscribing and being a part of this. If you haven't yet, we'd love to have you here. It's College Football Sickos by College Football Sickos. Want y'all a part of this channel, want y'all a part of this community. We will give you our prediction in this game on Tuesday on the live show on this platform. So 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central, that will be when we give you our prediction in this game. So one of the early thoughts I have on this one is like, what is the Georgia bounce back mechanism looking like in 2024? Because honestly, they played, I think, poorly enough against Kentucky to lose that football game. And you know who else thinks that? You know who else had a whole week to get after them? Kirby Smart. And we've seen this now. Whenever Georgia kind of has a game where, you know, they don't look very Georgia-esque. Think about, obviously, the game that we just saw against Kentucky. Think about Missouri from a couple years ago. Think about Auburn from last year. They have a certain way about themselves of treating that game like a smelling salt. And for those of y'all that have ever, used a smelling salt before, you get just a little bit of that aroma into your nostrils, and you are like wide awake. You might be running off of 2 hours of sleep. You might be just have woken up from a nap. But when you get that smelling salt into your system, you are like all the way present, all the way alert. And typically, that's what those games have been like for Georgia. Is that the case in Tuscaloosa? Because I'll tell you this, if they walk out there and look at all the way they looked against Kentucky, they will not just lose this game, it'll be ugly. And that's hard for us to wrap our mind around at this point because we haven't seen Georgia lose a game in an ugly fashion before. But like that's definitely going to be something that I think we see Kirby Smart force the issue on for this week for Georgia, and I'm sure during last week, during the bye week. Question as well within that question is, what is the push like up front for Georgia on the line of scrimmage, or offensively rather? Because against Kentucky, it wasn't really what you had hoped it would look like in the first half against Clemson. It wasn't what you would have hoped it would look like. I think for Georgia, they want to typically it's a pass to run look, which is kind of counterintuitive with what you think about when you see that Georgia logo. You think smash mouth, you think make you say uncle. But like Georgia, the last couple of seasons early on in the year, they have been more pass heavy than run heavy. They were averaging something like 30 attempts a game this point last year. With that being said, you want to go on the road and you want to win in Tuscaloosa against that high-powered offense. I think you need to have something on the ground to be able to, one, just take the air out of the game and make Jalen Milroe watch a certain percentage of that. 2, you would like to lull that young secondary to sleep as much as possible. And then when there's shots there, allow your skill players in the perimeter to be able to elevate. Now, last year in this game, another thought that I have is like Jalen Milroe, man, I sat down and predicted this game, the SEC championship game, which we were fortunate enough to be at that game and call it a job, which is hilarious. Sat down and broke down the game and said, okay, well, this matchup favors Georgia. Okay, well, this matchup also favors Georgia. Well, this matchup, and we kind of went down the line there, and to me, it kept being a small margin, mind you, but a margin that favored Georgia. And the deal was, honestly, when the dust settled in Atlanta, Jalen Milroe threw on the cape. You looked under his jersey, there was an S on his chest, and like that was kind of the deal breaker. A better way to say it, that was the logic breaker for you when you broke down this game a year ago. Is that the same case in this year's game? Because Jalen Milroe last year, let's be real here, offensively, they were still trying to figure it out. It felt like to me. Maybe figured out's the wrong word. This year, they are so much more dynamic. They're playing so much more to his skill set. They are tailoring the offense to him. Like, Jalen Milroe is the guy, and he's looking like it thus far into the season. I think he's got something crazy like 14 total touchdowns. That doesn't happen on accident. That doesn't happen over the course of like, oh, yeah, he had a good offseason. I'm telling you, Kalen DeBoer, what they're doing with him running the football, what they're doing with him equipping him as a passer, that's going to be something to watch in this game, obviously. But even further, Is that the logic breaker once again? Remains to be seen. Because Kirby Smart, he remembers last year too. He remembers number 4 running every which way and breaking plays where Georgia thought they had him in the backfield, and he ends up turning upfield, finding someone downfield. He ends up turning upfield, getting a first down with his legs. Like, it's a special player in Jalen Milroe. Is he able to have that kind of success he had last year in the SEC title game? Now, the advantage for Georgia here is, well, last year you were having to play some young bucks in spots that you wouldn't typically want to play some young bucks at the linebacker position due to injury. So the experience factor is favoring Georgia a little more than it did a year ago. But also what we just said about Alabama, the experience factor and I think overall the offensive factor favors Alabama in that sense with having a better approach and a better plan in this game. And through a few games, we've seen that from Alabama. Also having a full week now to game plan, Kalen DeBoer will bring his best to the table. I'm sure Kirby Smart and Glenn Schumann will do the same, but like Kirby Smart will absolutely have his work cut out for him with that game plan Kalen DeBoer is going to bring. So one more thought here. I think both have been pretty vanilla so far, speaking of game plans. I don't think either side of this matchup has had to really, go too deep into the bag just yet. And Alabama did a little bit more against Wisconsin. Didn't have to do too much more. 42-10 was the final there. Which OC goes deeper into the bag here? Because we talk about, the need for explosive plays in every game. But in this one, man, with how good the front sevens are for both sides of this thing, that might end up being the difference maker. And I was talking to Aaron Murray about this on his show last night, reacting to everything that was week 4. So go check out Snaps to do a great job over there. But he was saying, like, hey, if I'm Georgia, like, I keep hearing how good the receiving core is. I'm still waiting for them to make that jump, to make that move. And the reality is, if you have a quarterback in Carson Beck, who I think a lot of people believe is in that conversation to be the best quarterback in college football, you got to have some guys on the perimeter to maximize him. And I think they have a little bit more than what we've seen. I think Mike Bobo is going to, have a few tricks up his sleeve for this one in Tuscaloosa, but that's something to watch for here. Because what I just said a second ago, it could be a situation where they both just hit each other in the face for the better part of 3.5 quarters, and then one explosive play, whether it be for Georgia or for Alabama, is the difference maker. Now for Alabama, what we said about them being vanilla and all that, that's 100% true, but Ryan Williams now, he's balled so far. This is going to be the biggest game of his life, of his very young life. Supposed to still be in high school. He is a real deal field stretcher for them. This is going to be the best secondary he's gone up against. Definitely the best safety play he's gone up against with Malachi Starks. So far, Georgia is allowing 4.5 yards a pass, top 10 in America. Alabama allowing 3.2 yards a pass. Good for number 1 in America. So whichever side of this is able to create some explosives and loosen up that box, then maybe even from there be able to run the football better, that's going to be, I think, a massive tone setter in this game. So who wins in this one? At the end of the day, us as college football fans. As we sit here on Sunday morning, sometimes I have a feel for where we're going to go on Tuesday. Like, y'all, I need to look at some more game tape, because I do not know which way we're going to go on this one. I've gone back and forth over the last 24 hours. I'm sure I'll go back and forth a few more times before Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern. But regardless, make sure you're subscribed. Follow me on Instagram and on Twitter at JDPikel. Want to hear from y'all. Who are you picking in this one? But regardless, it's going to be a movie. Cannot wait for it. We love y'all. We appreciate y'all. We're going to keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time.